Okay, listen, you think you know underdog stories? You think Rocky Balboa Goes Racing is just some Netflix documentary you missed? Nah, what I'm about to tell you is not a movie. It's not a fairy tale. It's a real life, full throttle, fire spitting, gear crunching legend that somehow flew under everyone's radar. This is the story of a man, one man, who looked at the biggest, most expensive, most cutthroat racing league on planet Earth and said, "Screw it, I'll build my own car." Yeah, you heard me. Not "I'll join a team," not "I'll get a sponsor." I'll build my own Formula One car in his own garage, with his own hands, with barely any money and even fewer friends saying, "Hey, that's a good idea." And get this, he didn't just show up at some low-stakes regional race to flex his DIY beast. Nope. He entered the actual Formula One World Championship with the big boys, the legends, the cold-blooded sharks with billion-dollar budgets, armies of engineers, and entire factories behind them. And this madman, this absolute lunatic, he beat them. I'm not exaggerating. This guy didn't just survive, he won. He beat Ferrari. He beat McLaren. He beat the teams who literally write history books about themselves. Let that sink in. Built his own car, qualified for a real F1 race, faced down the giants, crossed the finish line first, left the world speechless. If this were a Hollywood movie, you'd roll your eyes and say, "Yeah, right, that would never happen." Well, it did. And the craziest part? Almost no one talks about it. It's buried under decades of mainstream F1 drama, overshadowed by corporate storylines, forgotten by highlight reels that favor money over miracle. But not today. Today we're digging this story out of the dirt, dusting it off, and giving it the damn respect it deserves. Because this wasn't just some fluke. This wasn't some lucky lap. This was one of the boldest, most rebellious, most adrenaline-soaked stories in the entire history of motorsport. So buckle up, my friend. Forget everything you know about Formula One. Forget the suits, the politics, the corporate BS. This is the story of a guy, a garage, a dream, and a car that made history. Who was this guy, and was he totally insane? All right, so you're probably thinking, okay, cool story, but who the hell was this guy? Some rich kid with a passion project? Some genius engineer turned rogue? Nope, not even close. This was Graham freaking Hill. And no, he wasn't just some guy. He was already a legend before this madness even started. Let's rewind a little. Graham Hill, British gentleman, mustache sharp enough to cut steel, charisma turned up to 11, and one of the most naturally gifted drivers to ever slide into a cockpit. The dude won 2 Formula One World Championships, conquered Monaco 5 freaking times, 5, and casually collected trophies at Le Mans and the Indy 500. Yeah, the man basically speed ran every motorsport bucket list in existence. But here's the twist. He didn't come from money. He didn't get plopped into a race car at 6. He wasn't handed a golden steering wheel from birth like some of the silver spoon drivers we've seen. He worked as a mechanic, literally. He learned cars by building them, fixing them, sweating under them. He earned his seat. He earned his titles. And when his time at the big teams ended, instead of riding off into the sunset or cashing in with TV gigs, what did Graham Hill do? He looked at Formula One, smiled that cheeky grin, and basically said, "You know what? I'll just do it myself." He launched his own damn team. He built his own car. He became a constructor. Like he wasn't already a full-time icon. Now he wanted to be an engineer, a manager, and still race at the highest level. Bro, how do you even explain that level of crazy, or passion, or both? And here's the part that still makes my jaw hit the floor every time I think about it. He didn't do it for glory. He did it because he loved racing. Genuinely. Obsessively. Desperately. The guy couldn't not race. It was in his blood, in his bones, in every heartbeat. It wasn't about legacy or money. It was about the pure, unfiltered joy of driving a car fast, especially one he built with his own 2 hands. And it wasn't easy. No wind tunnel, no factory, no billion-dollar sponsors. Just a couple of guys in a garage, sketching ideas, welding frames, tuning engines like mad scientists on a deadline. A tiny little team with massive ambitions and absolutely zero guarantees. But Graham didn't care. He never cared about what was realistic. He cared about what was possible. And that's what makes him so dangerous and so legendary. He wasn't content being a great driver. He wanted to push the limits of what a single person could do in Formula One. And guess what? He did it. This wasn't a comeback. This was a revolution in disguise. So next time someone tells you Formula One is all about money, power, and corporate dynasties, just remember, one man, one dream, one car, and a whole lot of guts. Okay, so picture this. You're Graham Hill, a two-time world champ. You've raced for BRM, Lotus. You've kissed trophies on podiums, hugged champagne bottles tighter than your relatives. You've lived the F1 dream. And now you're standing in a tiny workshop that doesn't even have proper lighting, staring at a blank chassis thinking, yep, we're going to take on Ferrari with this. It sounds insane because it was. This wasn't some high-tech, wind tunnel-having, 200-person factory with white lab coats and carbon fiber growing on trees. No, this was GH Engineering, better known as a garage with ambition issues. And Hill, he was the boss, the mechanic, the designer, the test driver, the team principal, hell, probably the guy who made the coffee too. So what did he do? He rolled up his sleeves, called a few loyal mates, grabbed some spare parts, and just started building from scratch. Like, do you understand how absurd that is? Most F1 teams back then were already engineering monsters, entire floors of designers just to make a winglet. And Hill, he's sketching suspensions on napkins and welding tubes by hand like it's some steampunk fever dream. But here's the twist. The car? It actually worked. The Hill GH1 was born. It was lean. It was scrappy. It didn't look like much, but under the skin, pure grit and clever engineering. Graham's fingerprints were all over it, literally and figuratively. Everything about that build screamed outsider. It wasn't just a car, it was a statement, a middle finger to the establishment. A big, bold, we don't need your millions to matter. And the real kicker? While the big teams were busy testing with computers, Graham tested with his senses. He could feel what was wrong, hear a rattle and know the exact bolt, adjust the suspension by instinct, tweak the aero just by watching how the grass bent in the wind at 150 miles per hour. Because when you've lived inside a car for most of your life, you don't just drive it, you become it. And that's what makes this story unreal. Not just the fact that he built a car, but that he built one good enough to race in Formula One. Not just show up and not embarrass himself good. No, I'm talking line up on the grid next to Niki Lauda and not blink good. And this wasn't a one-man ego project either. Hill wasn't building some private toy to show off at Goodwood. He was building a team, a real team, for real racing. He even put other drivers in his cars, gave young talent a chance to drive in F1 when no one else would. You feel that? That's not just determination, that's legacy in the making. So yeah, the big dogs had millions, Hill had heart. And when you pour that much soul into a machine, it stops being a car. It becomes a weapon. Lining up with legends and scaring the hell out of them. So the car is built, the dream is real, and now it's race time. Not a test day, not a friendly run. We're talking actual championship grade, full throttle Formula One. And guess who's there? Ferrari, McLaren, Lotus, Brabham, all the big dogs, all the powerhouse teams with pit crews bigger than Hill's entire operation. And then there's Graham, helmet on, suit zipped, walking toward a car that he built himself. And bro, the paddock didn't know what to do with that. Like, imagine the confusion on their faces. Wait, Graham Hill's still racing? Wait, that's his car. Wait, he built it? And then came the real shock. Wait, he's fast? Because here's the twist no one was ready for. The car actually worked. And not just barely get around the track worked. I mean, competing with the midfield and occasionally smacking the front runners worked. And the moment it clicked for everyone was during the 1975 season. Hill's team entered with the GH1, this Frankenstein's monster of budget ingenuity and pure willpower. And in the right hands, first his and then others like Rolf Stammelin, the damn thing flew. It wasn't the prettiest car, it wasn't the most stable, but when it clicked, oh boy, it clicked hard. The Hill team scored points, not dreams, not hopes, actual on-the-board world championship points. Let's pause for a second. Do you know how rare that is? To go from wrenching in a garage to point scoring in Formula One? That's not just rare, that's unthinkable. The other teams, they noticed? Oh, the old man still got it, they said. No, man, he never lost it. He just stopped waiting for permission. Graham wasn't just there to make up numbers. He was there to compete. Every time he rolled out of the pit lane, it was like he was saying, "Hey Ferrari, hey McLaren, catch me if you can." And sometimes they couldn't. The media started paying attention. Fans were getting behind this rogue team, this last samurai of motorsport. The narrative flipped from "he's crazy" to "wait, is he a genius?" And you better believe the other teams didn't like it. Not one bit. Because if a guy in a glorified workshop could build a car that beat their multi-million-dollar machines, what did that say about them? Hill didn't just race. He exposed the illusion that you needed insane money and political clout to matter in F1. He was proving, lap after lap, that all you really needed was courage, a spanner, and a complete disregard for what's realistic. And in the pit wall meetings of those top teams, yeah, they were whispering about him. Because this wasn't just a race anymore. This was a movement. Triumph, tragedy, and the price of going all in. So things are finally rolling, the team's on the grid, the car's quick, the dream is alive. It's not just a story anymore. It's history in the making. But like any real motorsport story, there's a dark side. Because racing at 300 kilometers per h in a car you built yourself, that's not ambition. That's a game of Russian roulette. Every lap could be your last. And then it happened. 1975, Spanish Grand Prix. Hill wasn't driving that day. He put German driver Rolf Stammelin in the seat. Talented guy. Brave. Hungry. And that day, the car was flying, literally. Rolf was in the lead. Leading. A Graham Hill-built car was out front in a freaking Grand Prix. Think about that for a second. This wasn't a fluke. This was proof. Proof that the garage-built Underdog could beat Ferrari, McLaren, Brabham, all of them. But then, disaster. The rear wing failed. At over 250 kilometers per h, the car lost downforce. It launched, smashed into the barriers, tore through the air like a missile. The result? Catastrophic. Rolf survived, barely, with multiple injuries. But tragically, 5 spectators were killed. It was one of those moments where time just stops. No cheering, no celebration, just silence and horror. The F1 world was shaken. And for Graham Hill, it was like a gut punch from the universe itself. Because when you build your dream with your own hands and then watch it almost kill someone, it changes you. That wasn't just a car, that was a part of him. He took the blame, fully. He never hid, never pointed fingers, never made excuses. Because that's who Graham Hill was. A man who stood tall even when everything was crashing around him. But it broke something inside him. He stepped back from driving, focused more on managing the team, trying to hold it all together. The team kept racing, though, because that's what racers do. You fix what's broken, you wipe off the blood, and you go again. But the magic, the momentum, it was fading. Sponsors got nervous, the budget got tighter. And in F1, once the money dries up, it's game over. Still, Graham didn't stop fighting. Because how could he? This wasn't just racing anymore. It was his life. Part 6. The legacy, a car, a dream, a damn legend. So here we are. The story could have ended a dozen different ways. In glory, in tragedy, in obscurity. And in a way, it ended in all three. Because in 1975, just months after that horrific crash in Spain, tragedy struck again. But this time, there were no survivors. Graham Hill, along with several members of his team, was flying back from a test session. Bad weather, poor visibility, a small private plane. It crashed near London. Everyone on board died. Just like that, it was over. A team, a dream, A man who lived like a bullet and burned like a flare, gone. The F1 world was crushed. It wasn't just another driver lost. It was Graham freaking Hill, the only man in history, to this day, to win the Triple Crown of Motorsport, Monaco Grand Prix, Le Mans, and the Indy 500. And he didn't go out in a blaze of glory on the track. He went out trying to build something bigger than himself. Now, let's talk legacy. Because this ain't a story you tell just to feel sad. No, this is a story that redefines the word legend. Hill wasn't just a great driver. He was a madman with a blueprint, a mechanic with a dream, a racer who said, "Screw the system, I'll build my own." How many world champions have even thought about building their own team from the ground up, let alone actually doing it, let alone scoring points, let alone leading a Grand Prix? That's one guy, one name, one story. Graham Bloody Hill. And let's not forget, his son, Damon Hill, went on to become a Formula One world champion too. The only father-son duo to ever do it. But it all started with a man in a garage, staring at a bare chassis, whispering to himself, "Let's build something crazy." That's the energy, that's the legacy. Not the trophies, not the wins, but that attitude. That, yeah, it's impossible. Now pass me the wrench energy. That I don't need your millions, I've got guts and duct tape vibe. That I'll race you in a car I built with my own damn hands madness. And in a sport that's become all data and dollars sometimes, you just need to remember the story of the guy who did it the hard way, the wild way, the human way. He didn't just race. He reminded us why we fell in love with racing in the first place. Conclusion: the legacy that shouldn't have been possible. So yeah, that was the man who built his own Formula One car and didn't just race it, but raced it well. And when I say raced, I don't mean just showing up. I mean scoring points, leading races, going wheel to wheel with the biggest teams in motorsport history, in a car that he built. Take a second, let that really sink in. Because this isn't just a story about Graham Hill, the driver. This is a story about Graham Hill, the rebel engineer, the garage philosopher, the last gladiator of the sport's golden era. He didn't have a mega corporation behind him. He didn't have a 500-person technical department or a wind tunnel the size of a football stadium. What he had: grit, obsession, madness, vision, and a toolbox. He looked at a blank sheet of metal and saw a dream. He heard the noise of a V8 engine and called it home. And while others played it safe in their corporate-backed cars, Graham said, "Screw safety, screw limits, let's build something insane." And yes, it came with pain, with loss, with failure and tragedy and heartbreak. But that's racing, that's life. And Graham Hill lived it more fully than anyone else ever dared. He didn't wait for opportunity. He built it, literally, bolt by bolt, lap by lap, dream by dream. And here's the part that gets me every time. He didn't need to do any of this. He was already a world champion, already a legend, already immortalized in racing history. But he wanted more. Not more glory, more challenge, more creation, more danger. Because some people aren't content with just being remembered. They want to change what's possible. And for a moment, just a fleeting, glorious moment, Graham Hill did exactly that. He made the impossible real. So what's the takeaway? It's not about Formula One. It's not even about cars. It's about you. If you've got a crazy idea, chase it. If everyone says you can't, do it anyway. If the world looks at you like you're out of your mind, smile and keep building. Because sometimes, that's exactly what it takes to leave a mark, to write your name where no one thought it belonged, to build something no one believed in, and drive it straight into the history books. That's what Graham Hill did. And that's why his story isn't just worth remembering, it's worth living by.